Welcome in to Texans Today, everybody. I'm your host, Jeremy Chuggs, and coming up on today's show, should the Houston Texans trade away Dameon Pierce before the start of the 2024 season? Well, I'll tell you the latest trade rumors around Dameon Pierce. My thoughts coming at the end of today's show. But before we get into some Dameon Pierce talk, let's talk a little scheduling. As one of my guys, Cody Stutes, over on X, had this to say: the hashtag Texans will not play the Jets, Packers, Chiefs, or Cowboys, and will not host the Ravens in Week 1. That leaves these teams, because all these teams are already accounted for their Week 1 matchups. That's either an AFC South opponent, either you are hosting the Bears, Bills, Lions, or Dolphins, oh my, or you're going to play the Vikings or Patriots. What's your preference, he says. And my preference, honestly, it's changed a little bit. Before the Packers game was announced, I kind of wanted to play the Packers. I thought that would be a pretty decent Week 1 matchup. CJ Stroud, Jordan Love, two young quarterbacks. But now that all this is out, I kind of want to play the Colts. And I'll tell you why. Recently, Colts linebacker Zaire Franklin was on James's Boyd, his podcast. I believe he works for The Athletic, covering the Indianapolis Colts. They were just, shooting the shit, talking back and forth. And he asked him, hey, is your biggest beef with the Titans? And he says, no, because I already smacked them a couple times. It'd really be with Houston. Houston versus Indianapolis. I don't know. Maybe a little bit of a rivalry brewing right there. And then he said on Texans quarterback CJ Stroud, because they had met a couple times throughout the offseason. I know at Super Bowl Radio Row, I saw both of them there. He said they conversed a little bit. And he said he told CJ this: I had to remind him as well that he's never beaten Anthony Richardson, which is true. I mean, their first meeting, the Texans lost to the Colts whenever Anthony Richardson was playing that first half of football. And we haven't seen the matchup that everybody's waiting for: Anthony Richardson versus CJ Stroud, because obviously Richardson got hurt last year, meaning Gardner Minshew took over for the Colts. But I'm really interested to see how this Colts team plays and how Anthony Richardson plays this year for Indianapolis. I mean, in a small sample size last year, Anthony Richardson was very dynamic. But at the end of the day, CJ Stroud has a ton of weapons around him now. This team is a, monster of a team going into next year on paper. And I think, Zaire Franklin said, Stroud hasn't cooked us yet. Stroud's not going to cook us. Zaire, you have another thing coming, because I believe CJ Stroud is going to cook the entire NFL, the Colts included. And if you agree with me, go down and hit that like button right now. If you're ready for CJ Stroud, to cook the Indianapolis Colts this year, go down and hit that thumbs up icon. Go down and like today's video, because we all know Stroud's going to cook this year like he's a hibachi chef, throwing out little shrimp tails to everybody. He is absolutely going to be on fire this year, and I believe it deep down to my core that CJ Stroud is going to be an MVP candidate this year. So Zaire Franklin, you have another thing coming, buddy. Now, let's get into the main topic of today's show. Dameon Pierce, could he be traded away? He's been mentioned in some trade rumors lately, and the Texans, they went ahead and added to the running back room this offseason. They did sign Joe Mixon to an extension, but they originally traded for Joe Mixon from the Cincinnati Bengals, and then they drafted Jaws Jordan from Louisville. So then the question begs, should the Texans try to trade away Dameon Pierce? Adam Levitan had this to say: lots of wild, unrealistic trade rumors out there, but do you think there's some validity? Do think there's some validity that these guys could actually be moved in order of likelihood? He thinks Treylon Burks is the most likely, then Miles Sanders, then our guy right there, Dameon Pierce at number 3. I mean, when it comes to trading away Dameon Pierce, I know he had a down year last year, a little sophomore slump, and then the Texans added some guys to the running back room. They added Joe Mixon, who's been a bell cow back his entire career, and they drafted Jawar Jordan, which a lot of people are very excited about, even though he was a later round pick. Now, we go back to 2022. Dameon Pierce was an animal. 220 carries, 939 yards, 4.3 yards per carry, and 4 touchdowns. So, obviously, if we're able to get any semblance of Dameon Pierce from 2022, the answer would be no. But I don't know if he's going to be able to return to that form or if it was just a fluke season in his rookie year. What say you, though? Do you trade Dameon Pierce? Would you trade him if you were the Texans GM? If you were right there with Nick Caserio and he was like, hey, should we trade Dameon Pierce? What would you say? Yes or no? My answer to this is going to be at the very end of today's show, but I want to hear from you folks at home first. Go down in the comment section. Tell me, would you trade him? Would you not trade him? And if you want a little bonus points, if you want an extra gold star, tell me why you would or wouldn't trade Dameon Pierce. Now, there was two teams that were mentioned in these trade rumors by Leviton. Two teams in particular. And the first one I want to focus on, because this is, I think, the more likely one, is the Dallas Cowboys. They were mentioned as the top destination for Dameon Pierce. I mean, they lost Tony Pollard in free agency, and they have a need at running back. They don't have really anybody. As we look at their running back depth chart, they were so desperate, they went back to their ex. They called him. They texted him at 2 a.m. in the morning. They said, you up? They begged Ezekiel Elliott to come back to Dallas. Rico Dowdle is not a RB1. He's maybe an RB2, but he's battled injuries his entire career. Deuce Vaughn is 5'3", so I don't know what their plan is with him. So they really have nobody in this running back room. I mean, maybe Royce Freeman, but this running back room is cheeks. So I talked to our Cowboys Report host, Tom Downey, here at Chat Sports, and this is the trade idea that he threw out to me. I'm not going to give my thoughts on it just yet. I just want to share with you from a Dallas Cowboys fan, from a Cowboys perspective, what they would give up for Dameon Pierce. He said, the Cowboys have an influx of fifth-round picks, so I would give the Texans 2 2025 fifth-round picks in exchange for Dameon Pierce. So here's the trade from Cowboys fans. What are y'all thinking about this? Would you do this trade? Would you not do this trade? Who do you think wins? Let me know down in the comments section, because this is quite interesting trade idea for the Dallas Cowboys. For the Houston Texans, I don't know if I'm completely sold on that. Now, coming up, there's another team named as a trade partner for the Houston Texans when it comes to Dameon Pierce. I'll let you know who that is in just a moment. But if you haven't gotten them already, the brand new Texans secondary logo is on some brand new hats at our friends over at Fanatics. When you go to chatsports.com/Texans hats, you can get the brand new logo right here. They also have it in the blackout version. I love our secondary logo. I think it is awesome, if you ask me. A ton of other hat options as well. They have this classic one. They have the Texans draft hats as well, if you want to go there. The Salute to Service hat, I know, is on sale right now. So if you want to catch any of these hats, if you want to do a little window shopping, maybe say, hey, summertime, getting a little sunny outside, you're going to be spending some more time outside, maybe you need a Texans hat. Go to chatsports.com/Texans hats. That's going to be in the comment section and description of today's video. Go check them out today. Our friends over at Fanatics, they have all your Texans gear needs. Now, the second team that was listed was the Los Angeles Chargers. They lost Austin Eckler in free agency. They did sign J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards. Could they trade for Dameon Pierce? This is what their running back room looks like right now, and it kind of looks like you just kind of took the two guys from Baltimore and then swung them over to Los Angeles. But J.K. Dobbins, Gus Edwards, the main two guys. They drafted Kamani Vidal, the shorter running back out of Troy. They also have Isaiah Spiller, who was a draft pick out of Texas A&M a couple of years back. And we don't have a Chargers channel just yet at Chat Sports, so I had to kind of devise a trade for Dameon Pierce to the Chargers, and this is what I came up with. I think if that's what the Cowboys are offering, I think the Chargers would then counter with a 2025 fourth-round pick. Just straight up, a fourth-round pick for Dameon Pierce. This would be the Chargers-Texans trade idea. Let me know which one you like better in the comment section. Would you rather have 2/5 or 1/4 going into next year for Dameon Pierce? My thoughts on all this is this. I wouldn't trade Dameon Pierce unless you get blown away by an offer. Whenever I say you get blown away by an offer, that means a team is offering you a second-round pick, which would be ludicrous, and that's why I'm saying a trade's not going to happen, because you don't necessarily need a 2025 fourth-round pick. You don't need a 2025 fifth-round pick right now. You need to have this team as best as they can be going into 2024, because this is a season where the Texans are all in. They traded for a guy in Stephon Diggs on a one-year rental. They got an older edge rusher in Danielle Hunter that is towards the end of his prime, but still a really big contributor. They are setting this team up to be all in, chips all into the table this season. And if you take away Dameon Pierce from this running back depth chart, yes, you have Jawar Jordan, but we don't know what he is. He's a later round pick, and yes, he could end up being a good running back for this team. But that is not in the cards right now. You cannot say, oh, yeah, I feel comfortable with Jawar Jordan being the RB2. And say you trade away Dameon Pierce and Joe Mixon gets hurt. Do you feel comfortable with Jawar Jordan being your RB1? Even though he had a down year, I feel much more comfortable having Dameon Pierce as my RB1 if anything happens to Joe Mixon. So I don't think a Dameon Pierce trade happens. I don't want it to happen unless, like I said, you get absolutely blown away and a team offers you a second, maybe a third-round pick. But I really wouldn't want to get rid of Dameon Pierce because you didn't really draft a ton of options. You didn't get another, running back in free agency to replace that RB2. So I'd feel much more comfortable with Dameon Pierce on this roster. Now, just a reminder for tomorrow, we're going to be breaking down the Texans schedule as soon as we get it. And historically here at Chat Sports, we've been able to get the schedules a little bit before they release them on national TV. So if you want to check out the Texans schedule going in tomorrow, we'll break it down as soon as we get it. So make sure you hit that subscribe button, turn on the notifications, go down and hit that bell to make sure you're notified when we drop a video for the fastest growing Texans channel on YouTube, which is Texans Today. Make sure you're subscribed, join the family, and let's see who the Texans are playing in week 1 come tomorrow.